Good evening and welcome to the Broncolor Studio. Once again, I'm Urs Recher and I have the pleasure to talk to you this evening about product photography. The webinar is divided in two parts. The first one will be a live shoot. We have a live look at one of the latest how-tos that you can find on the Broncolor website. And then in a second part, we have a look at a certain amount of BTS photographs, behind the scenes pictures and finals, and we just discuss different approaches to product photography. About questions, so you can use at any time, you can use the chat window on the very right of your screen. I have two colleagues just nearby that are answering most of the questions. However, they will filter these questions as well, and some of them, they will be passed through to me. And after shooting the first product, I will be happy to answer these questions. And of course, there is a second Q&A session at the very end of today's webinar. Regarding the questions, we would appreciate if these questions are, let's say, related to the thing we talk about, which is Broncolor and let's say, actual products. So we are not talking about competitive products, and we are not talking about what might happen in the future. So no information here about future developments of Broncolor and no comparison with competitive products. These are the rules. And of course, if the questions are product photography related, even better. Right. Okay, I think that's all as introduction. I would like to start with this product shot. I will zoom in a little bit more the main camera as soon as we talked about this one up there. But the position of this light is very far away, and that's actually quite essential. So this will be the second light. As soon as we talked about the position of this light, I will zoom in a little bit so you have a closer look at what's actually happening here. Talk about the setup here. Medium format camera with a 150mm lens, which is not the macro lens for this camera brand, because the macro lens is a 120mm. But in this situation, the picture angle would be a little bit too wide, and my setup here is too small, or I have to buy a bigger box and to put in much more flower and so on. So that's why I'm cheating here a little bit, work with a lens that's actually slightly too long, and I have to put it a little bit further away so we cannot shoot full frame. So that's why I cheat a little bit by zooming in. The product itself, it's a white perfume bottle, and I shoot it on a white underground. The white underground is actually compressed flower. There are almost 3 kilos flour that I compressed quite heavily, and I put the bottle in order to create something like a meteorite impact on the moon's surface or whatever. The concept behind the shot is that we have, of course, a concentration of the lighting on the product. So I would like to keep the environment relatively dark and to focus all the lighting on the product. Additionally, I would like to receive or to create the impression as if the light is coming from the product itself. So like a glowing meteorite hitting the surface and still emitting light. We are going to work with 3 lights, 2 Picolites and the 35x60 softbox up there. And I start with the Picolite that comes here as a backlight, equipped with a projecting attachment and connected to a Satos power pack. I would like to let you have a close look at the Satos power pack at the very end when I can start moving lights around. All right, okay, I think that's it. So this light is already connected. I switch the modeling light on, and let's have a first look what this light does. So it's obviously a backlight hitting the bottle very strongly from the back, and let's see what this does to my picture. All right, so I try to find a way in between what you see and what's actually reality. What I see is a little softer. You have it's slightly too bright and a little bit too hard. but we will read out RGB values anyway, so you will have an idea of the correct or the exact exposure. So this light is now the Picolite from the back on a rather high power setting. The power pack is set to 11.5. 12 would be full power here, so 12 would correspond to 1600 joules. So we are just a little bit below. So I think we are here around 1200 joules. 1600 would be the max anyway of the Picolite. So we are quite on the highest possible light output. I forgot to mention one more thing, and that's the following. The original shot that you can see if you want on the Broncolor website, if you just go to broncolor.swiss and there you go to the Learn section, you will see actually the final photograph and the setup, the lights one by one, including some text that explains precisely what I've done here. Yes, exactly. So you can check this there. Now, this light is hitting by far too much. And thanks to the projecting attachment, I can close here the templates. I would like to let you see this with the other camera from the back. So with this Picolite attachment, I can introduce here the templates that it's not hitting the bottle left and right anymore. So I just close from the left and from the right that we have here only light behind it, but not hitting the flower directly. Right, and then from the top, I would like to close as well a little bit. Maybe the camera is slightly too bright, so let me compensate for this exactly. So here you see the precision. Oops, I have to take the arm away. Here you see the precision of these lights with the templates. This is the one coming in from the left, so it closes the light on the right. The one that comes in from below, of course, comes here in from the top. It's always the other side. And finally, the one here on the right. Let me take, yeah, just the camera's on the bad position. So here, the one on the right closes the light or controls the light on the left. Right, let's try something like this. Then here as much as possible. All right, so now it's not hitting here and here, left and right anymore. It's just illuminating the center, which means I should have no more disturbing light on the underground. So let's shoot it again. Yes, and the light is definitely more limited. I still have two problems, which is here I have an overexposure for sure in what you see, but as well in my final image. You can see reading the RGB values down here, red, green, blue, the three channels. If I go there, I have 3 times 255, which means, of course, it can be 10 f-stops overexposed. Doesn't really make sense to have this much light. But what I do like is the light that actually travels through the bottle. So I would like to limit the reflections, but I would like to have the same amount of light traveling through the bottle. And this can be adjusted as well with the templates. So just on this side, that's this very, very bright area down here. Here I would like to have less light. So I do this with the templates. I'm closing here. Okay, so this is the what you see on the very left. That's the crazy amount of light that overexposes my background. So I close here. And let's say only illuminate the 2/3 of the bottle on the right side. What we see as well is that the cap up here is heavily exposed. That's why because the Picolite hits there as well. So let's take care of this as well. So it's a problem from the top, which means I have to work with the template from below here. So I don't need any light on the silver cap. I just need the light on the white bottle. So maybe something like this. I close, or maybe I can even rotate the entire thing a little bit. Something like this. Okay, so it's just this little square up there, and let's see what this does to my picture. It should, of course, reduce the exposure on my background. And now, if we go to meet at the same area again, here I'm on 212, 215, 208. So I definitely have all the details there that I want. I could even go a little brighter. But as I said, I'm quite on the max with the power setting now on my power pack. But here I'm at F19. So let's open to 16. Talking about the aperture, the original shot. Yes, that's what I wanted to explain before. The original shot is actually shot at the F8, I think. So much more limited depth of field, and then working with focus stacking. This lens on F16 or like before on 22, of course, we already deal or have to deal with some diffraction, which means I lose sharpness in the end. But of course, for a webinar, it makes a lot of sense to get this done in a single exposure. So that's why I close the aperture more than I would in a real advertising shot. So this is kind of a shortcut this evening. Right. Okay, so I opened from 19 to 16, and let's shoot this quickly again with the new aperture. So it's going to be a little brighter. I check again the RGB values in here, and we are on a 239. Yep. So this was before, this is 19, this is 16, this is 19, this is 16. Okay, so we have here now on the brightest part of the reflection, we have RGB of 236, 238, 233. So we are just below 240, which means it's very bright, but showing all the details of my flower landscape, which means for the moment, I'm happy with this light. And of course, in the very end, we will have another close look if it works nicely with the other two lights together. But for the moment, that's it. And we take care on the second one. For this, I switch my Picolite coming from the back. I switch this one off. And I guess that's this one. Yep. Okay, good. So this is just a very simple light shaper. It's just a small softbox measuring 35 by 60 centimeters. And it's far away. And that's actually, I think, one of the most interesting parts of this entire setup. Because this softbox is so far away, it has an effect on the shiny cap of the perfume bottle, but it does not illuminate everything in an uncontrolled way. So by going far away, I increase the contrast between directed reflections, so mirroring surfaces, they will be very bright compared to matte surfaces. And of course, the white flower surface, of course, is very, very matte. And having the light far away, the underground turns dark, but the reflection remains very crispy. In order to lose not too much time, I positioned this already before. Of course, guessing the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection more or less. Second step, playing or working with the live image of the camera, moving this light around, and then in the end, of course, something like 5, 6, 7 test shots to have it at the right position. And as I said, the right position here is not so much a creative decision. It's really as far away that it still covers the entire cap and does not affect or destroy the contrast overall. Right. Okay, let's have a look what this light is doing. The other two are switched off. So I'm firing the softbox only now. Right, okay, and that's pretty much what I want. So surprisingly, the white underground, the white surface is very dark. Let's read here the RGB values. It's a 35. Okay, so it's not a complete black, but it's very, very dark. And at the same time, it shows a very bright exposure on the cap. Now, if I only take this a tiny little bit down, so I actually promised myself that I'm not going to move it, now I do it anyway. So I take it a little bit down, and you will see that this instantly has an impact on the illumination on my photograph. I guess that we will have some unpleasant reflections now on the white bottle. Exactly. Right. Okay, so it has to go up until we just have this tiny little white line like before. So pretty much where it was. So I hope I find this position again. Maybe here. Anyway, on this little box up there, you can easily play, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes until you're really happy with the position. I'm not going to do this today, promise, but nevertheless, I would like to keep it or to have it as perfect as possible. Right, there's still a little bit of reflections here. I can try to improve this by going up another 2 centimeters, but then, as I said, I'm not going to waste all evening on this. There will be an additional light hitting the white of the bottle anyway, so we will have additional light there anyway. Good. Okay. So with this tiny line, I can actually live quite well. Good. Exactly. So this is clear. Has to be far away. We can actually have a look at this position as well from a different point of view, from the point of view of a portrait photographer. Now, if this softbox is small and far away, it creates very dominant reflections. So you don't want to shoot a portrait with this size and this distance to the object when you shoot a portrait, because you will have very shiny skin, you will have unpleasant reflections in the glasses, and so on. So in portraits, you do the opposite. You probably take a bigger softbox and bring it closer to reduce reflections. Now I use a technique that creates a lot of shine by using a small aggressive softbox and put it far away. But this one is discussed now enough, which means I'm going to zoom in a little bit that you can see more closely what's happening here in front of this camera. Now I see something, now I know what I do, which is always good. So maybe something like this could make sense for the rest of the evening. Autofocus at the right spot. All right, good. So let's talk about the third light, yes, before we start about combining them. So the third light is up here. Let's shoot anyway quickly the 2 lights just to see why we need the third one. So these are the first 2 lights together. And now, obviously, we have here no light yet. From the reflection, so the back side of the bottle is actually illuminated by a reflection from the bottle. So that's why the shadows are behind or going towards the back. That's what I want to create, that it looks as if the bottle is giving light by itself. And of course, I need the same here. There, I don't have any light there yet because the softbox is too far away and the light that travels through the object is not bright enough. So I would like to have here additional light that kind of comes as well from the bottle. And that's why I try to use almost like a backlight, but of course I can't have this light behind it, behind my object. But I can use, again, actually the bottle to reflect the light. So I would say 90% of this light is hitting the bottle and is being reflected to the flower surface. And just about 10% are hitting the underground directly. This is again a Picolite, but not with a projecting attachment, with something a little less precise. It's a honeycomb grit. So we have here a snoot that actually pre-shapes the light already, that already limits the light angle a little bit. But then we have a narrow honeycomb grid and additional quite small aperture mask. So this is the most precise honeycomb grid you can wish for in a studio. And it's amazing. It's an amazing little super precise spot for small stills. So let's have a look what this one does. So the goal is to have the bottle white and some light in front of it. Now we see this, that we get here the shadows in front. Depends on the amount of light you have from the bottle. I think I see here something like a tiny, tiny double shadow. So this then would be the reflection from the bottle, while this is the light hitting directly. Maybe if we go further away, we see this a little bit more dominantly. This is the light that hits the surface directly. This might be a tiny double shadow. I guess this will be as well, this effect of double shadows will be reduced a little bit if we have all the lights in action, of course, later on, because it's normally something that I try to avoid, but you have to look very, very precisely to see both shadows, the ones from the light hitting directly and the ones coming from the bottle. Right, okay, so that's where we are at the moment. Let's have a look at the exposure going here to the brightest part. Even on my screen, this looks over. We have 3 times 255, which is not good news. So I go down there with the power. This is my outlet number 3. So I take it down, let's say, 2/3 of an f-stop from 6.5 to 5.8. Let's see what this does. Yep, looks better on my screen. And if I go to meter it, I'm on 264, 246, 242. Makes me slightly nervous. So again, your screen is slightly too bright and too hard in the end, too high in contrast. That's why we have here a close look at the RGB values. Nevertheless, I would like that as well. What you see makes more or less sense. So that's why I take this light down for another third, at least, something like that. And I try this probably for one more time. Yep. Okay, so if I go here again to this very bright areas here, so we are now on a 229, 228, 221. So I'm definitely on the safe side. I'm even too dark in my eyes, so I go up again. 2/10. Sorry for that. But on these white surfaces, in the end, you really work with tenths of an f-stop. You work very precisely. If you, I don't know, work on portrait, maybe it does not depend on a tenth of an f-stop, but especially in product photography with dark surfaces, with black surfaces, or white environment, of course, then all of a sudden a tenth of an f-stop becomes important. That's why our products are that precise. Right. So let's have a look at all the lights together. If we have to make some final adjustments, so I switch the main light and the softbox on again. Flip over to screen sharing, and let's have a look how this looks all together. Okay, again, on your screen, I guess this area here looks slightly too bright. But again, believe me, if I read out RGB values here, we are far below 250. On the white flower, we are on 241, which is super clean white, but not overexposed. So I can even make fine adjustments later on before I export the file, or even actually too late a little bit in Photoshop. But these are all the highlights are definitely recoverable. Just one word about exposure. If you're not sure, if you cannot control the exposure that precisely reading out RGB values, let's say you depend on a lousy screen on your camera, make sure that you underexpose a little bit. So underexposure is always kind of a life insurance. You can always push the file to be brighter, but once you have a burnt file, once you have the RGB, the 3 channels on a 255, even when you make it darker, even when you recover the highlights, they will not show any color, they will not show any texture, they will be just gray. But if you shoot it too dark and the white surface looks a little dirty, you can always push it in the end to look clean white. So as I said, life insurance as a photographer is underexposure. The best would be correct exposure, but life insurance, if you have to choose, always, if you're not sure, close half a stop and make the fine adjustments later on in your studio. Right, okay. So just very quickly for those that tuned in a little bit later, if you're interested in such kind of product photography, especially this one, it's the latest how-to on the Broncolor website. So you go to broncolor.swiss and then there you go to the Learn section. You will have, I don't know, lots of photographs. You always see the final result. You see behind the scenes photographs. Sometimes, like in this example, you see a picture from every single light. So we put a lot of effort in this Learn section and would like to communicate as much as possible with you guys about lighting. Right. Okay, so this is about the first shot. Let me have a look at the questions that I received from my colleagues. Greetings from Florida. Greetings back. What live software is being used? The software is called Focus. You can see it up here. P-H-O-C-U-S, Focus. It's actually the software is free, but it works mainly with or I think even only with Hasselblad cameras. I like it. It does not have that many features like Capture One, for example. But I kind of grew up with this software. I know what it does, and I constantly use it with my Hasselblad. So the software is called Focus. Again, it's freeware, but I'm not sure if you can work with it with other cameras than Hasselblad. Why the small softbox instead of P70, strip grid or narrow grid? Sorry, wrong button. I would like to have a mainly even exposure here on my silver cap. And of course, I want an evenly illuminated light source that's reflected in it. So honeycomb grid is a very bad idea because on a shiny surface, you could see the texture of the grid. So you will get all these black lines, very unpleasant. And the other thing is, I mean, a normal reflector, if you shoot into a normal reflector or if you shoot into a softbox, the normal reflector has a completely different light distribution. You will have a hot spot in the middle coming from the flash tube or the protecting glass, and then different parts of the reflectors might be a little brighter, a little darker. So it will never be as even. If I use a normal reflector for product photography, we will see this later on, it's always hidden behind an acrylic, let's say to create gradations. If you have a round object, you create gradations with a normal reflector behind an acrylic. But in this situation, the surface is flat. So I don't need a gradation. I would like to have the same exposure from the right to the left. And that's why I want a very evenly illuminated softbox to be reflecting in the cap of my perfume bottle. Okay, how many minutes can you use the Satos in this setup before you lose some power? Let me think, before you lose some power. I guess you're talking about the batteries, I assume. The battery, the Satos in this situation is equipped with one power supply unit and one battery. And in this combination, it never becomes tired. Okay, because the power supply unit, of course, constantly charges the batteries. We are charging, even in the studio, even in this configuration where it's connected to mains, we charge the capacitors from the batteries, because we can charge the capacitors faster from the batteries, because we don't have any limitation from pulling current out of the batteries. So we can charge unbelievable fast. And like now, when I talk too much in the studio, the power pack has enough time to charge the batteries. So in this configuration, it never gets tired, which is good news. I wish I could say the same about me. Right, last question for the moment. So at the moment, the small softbox positioned at the left of the subject is within the family of angles to create a direct reflection in front of the cap. Yes, that's correct. So again, I positioned the small softbox, which is already out of the frame you see now. In the first step, I try to guess the angle. So camera and the cap or the entire bottle looks like 20 degrees right from the camera. So I put the softbox obviously at 40 degrees. Okay, and then I try to guess regarding the height, and I put it there more or less, and then maybe with the live view of the camera or with test shots, you position it as far away as possible. If you put it further away, the exposure on the cap, the reflection on the cap will not be darker or brighter. So the reflection, the brightness of the reflection is independent on the distance. But of course, if you take it further and further and further away, the reflection becomes smaller. So sooner or later, if it's too far away, it does not cover the entire cap anymore. So that's why this softbox has pretty much like a given position as far away as possible, that it still covers the entire cap, but because it's so far away, it does not affect the white underground. It only affects the reflection in the cap, which is independent on the distance, as I said. Right, okay, so there's a new question. Can you please tell us how do you go about creating the clean broken pattern on the flower? Create the impression of a striking meteorite surface. Yes, now I can do it because I don't have to shoot it again. Let's take this camera a little closer, a little higher. All right, and then I try to take it down here. Good. Well, of course, as I said at the beginning, lighting questions are, of course, more interesting. But anyway, so what I have here so far is just this surface of flower. I would like to flatten it quickly, but I don't find the thing to. There it is. So it's quite important that you compress it nicely. So will not be as clean as before. So we compress this nicely everywhere. Something like this. If you take this cardboard that's a little bigger, of course, it's not a problem. So, but if you put on quite a lot of weight, now there's nothing there to focus on. So let's focus here on the edge. And now if you have it like this, you can really just put it in and it kind of happens automatically. So if you push it forward, it happens more in front. If you push it backwards, there's more of this texture on the background. And then sooner or later, it stays at the right spot. But the key point is really about compressing the flower quite nicely. If you just put it there and put the bottle, it will fall. So it's really the goal to almost with your entire body weight that you really compress it heavily, and then it gives these nice textures. Right, okay. So put this one away. And Now, I think, yes, the questions are empty, which means I can start talking about some additional sets that I prepared. And the first two sets are, in a way, recycling, or some of the ideas from the product shot we just did are coming back. So in this product shot, we have as well some shiny areas, which is here the bioterm writing. You can see a little bit that I have dark edges here. Let's open this with preview, so I can zoom in a little better. So you can see that the softbox is close enough that the writing is properly illuminated, but here the very edges where the product is a little bit more round, I have slightly dark edges. I leave it for two reasons. First of all, I want to show what can be done with lighting and without post-production. So the shot you see is out of camera. And additionally, these kind of high contrast areas here as well illustrate a little bit that it's not a white writing, but that's actually something reflecting. And this, for me, when I plan the shot, this is like the most problematic part of the shot where I expect problems to happen. So that's where I start my lighting setup. And that's actually the first light I set up is taking care on this shiny or reflective writing. In the behind-the-scenes photograph, this would be, again, a softbox. In this situation, the softbox is slightly bigger and a little closer because the object is round. On this perfume bottle here, the surface is absolutely flat, so I can even work over large distances with a very small softbox. Of course, if it's round, I have to get closer a little bit. Nevertheless, the approach, the idea of working with the softbox as far away as possible is still correct. So this softbox number one here creates nothing else than here the shiny writing in my product. And even the underground, which is nothing else than white shaving cream, is not black. Again, it's not black, but it's definitely darker than I will need it. So I'm happy with it. General exposure, the entire shot is dipped into bluish light. This happens here with light number 2. It's a normal reflector with blue filters on top, up to the ceiling, vertically up. And the picture, or what this light is doing is this. It's a kind of, it's a very boring, no three-dimensional lighting, super flat, but it dips everything in this cool, cold atmosphere. Right, then one of the lights is the similar one that we just used here. Let's go at the behind the scenes again. So let's say this Picolite here, number 5, is again equipped with a projecting attachment, hitting the back of this of the product quite intensively, just to make the light shine through. And this will be the Pico from the back. So this, again, like in the shot we've just done, is responsible for the transparency of the shot. This light, however, is not reaching the front. So the front needs some additional light to shape. Let's say it looks like waves, but as I said, it's just it's shaving cream. And the texture here in front of the product comes from an additional P70 normal reflector equipped with grids. And I just wanted to make sure that this light is not hitting the product. So I set up here a black flag to keep this light away from the product. Then there are 2 more lights. Number 3 is not so important. Number 3 is just a backlight to give, no, not this one. Yeah, this one actually, that creates here this nice line here, separating it from the background with a very dominant line, and creates the texture of the shaving cream behind the object, while the other P70 takes care of the texture in front of the object. And then I wanted that the object is standing like in a spotlight, but the spotlight is not coming from above, the spotlight is coming from below. That's here in the behind the scenes photograph. That's this Picolite here from below the table. The table is basically just a piece of glass and then the shaving cream directly on it. Here we have a Fresnel spot, and this Fresnel spot can very nicely be focused to a very small spot. It's not as precise as, let's say, the honeycomb grits, but it's more powerful. So I had enough power to actually shine through the shaving cream and to put the object in a kind of a spotlight, as I said before. And then, I think that's it. Huh? Oh, no, background. Background, so there's light number 7, which is not a flashlight in this situation. So that's what light 7 is doing. So this light is not filtered. It's a LED F160 light, and the color is, sorry, you don't see it. So here the color is not achieved by using filters, but you can do this directly on the LED, because we have different colors LEDs. You can choose the color temperature from 2800 all the way up to 6800, and additionally you can even choose the magenta gray balance to have any kind of light color. Why continuous light in this situation? Because I wanted to experiment a little bit with the camera movements. So of course all the flashlights were absolutely sharp, don't show any movement. But then the continuous light was back there, and I exposed it by about half a second. And during this half second, you can do different things. You can, let's say, defocus your camera. You can zoom the camera if it's a zoom lens. You can shake the camera. You can move the object, and so on and so on. So combining continuous light and flashlight gives you additional creative possibilities actually to play with light. Right. Okay, so in the end, we have something like 7 lights. One of those lights is continuous, and the final shot, as seen before, is this one. Okay, this example as well is explained in the Learn section of the Broncolor website. There are examples, just still image, but there are as well a lot of videos that we produce, some of them in cooperation with Carl Taylor. So, as I said before, a lot of photography lighting knowledge on the website broncolor.swiss and /learn. Good. One more still life I would like to show, which is as well kind of recycling one of the lighting concepts that I just used on this photograph. And it's this shot of Maybelline beauty products, and you see here on the left of this product there is kind of like a shine. So this product heavily reflects the light that hits it. Okay, the main light, however, is a different one. The main light is here, the Picolite. But the Picolite here, number 2, would definitely not hit this area, and it would not create any reflections back on the white surface. That's why we have here this Picolite, again, with projecting attachment, hitting this area. So, and this area, in this situation, it's not transparent, but of course it's reflective. So this reflects the light from the Picolite back on the white surface, creating this lovely shine here. Okay, so it's pretty much the same concept. Most of the time, this is something you try to avoid. You try to avoid that one object reflects onto something else, that you have this kind of internal reflections. But knowing that it's maybe a mistake even motivates me maybe to try it in a creative way. Okay, and especially having such a precise light, you can have a lot of light on a small area and work with the reflection. And this light, a lot of light on this reduced area does not hit anything else, in the set, so it's not disturbing, because it would easily be like 10 f-stops overexposed, so you only see the reflection on it. But important is, of course, that you have something very, very precise here, like the Picolite, that it only hits this area. Good. The rest is from the fill-in lights is actually quite interesting as well. The main fill-in light is here, number 3. That's a Pico box, so it's one more of these Picolites. I'm sorry, I really love these guys. And it's with a Pico box, and the Pico box is like almost below the table. And as the Pico box is below the table, it does hit the objects on it, but it does not hit the table itself. So that's why I can fill in the scene without destroying the dominant shadows. And even if here in this area the table is actually white, the fill-in light is coming from below the table and does not hit there. And so this dominant vignetting, I get it from the lighting, from precise lighting, and I don't have to do this in Photoshop in the end. A lot of photographers are not aware of the importance of fill-in lights. I see a lot of good photographers that set up beautiful main lights and then, unfortunately, often enough, destroy the sets with fill-in lights. Most of the time, or many times, I spent almost more time on the fill-in lights, on the little technical details, instead of the main light. Finding out the nice main light is actually quite simple, but then to make this main light work with additional fill-in lights or accent lights and so on, that's in my eyes, that's a really tricky part, and I spend most of the time more time on these little details like fill-in lights and so on, because in my eyes, they are more difficult. Right, okay, the last light is here, just this last Pico here with a Fresnel spot attachment, just illuminating this area here of the ring. So in the final shot, just this little highlight here is achieved by the Fresnel spot attachment of the Picolite. Right. Okay, good. So I see there are 2 questions coming in, so let me have a close look at them. Can your LED lights be used at the same light shapers like the normal pulsar strobes, like Pulsaflex or a Para with a usual ring? Absolutely. The LED F160, let me talk about the name first. It's called LED because it's a LED light. It's called F because it's focusable. So even like a Pulsar G head, you can focus, you can change the lamp, the light source within the reflector. And 160 because of the wattage. It has 160 watts. LED light corresponds to about, depends on your light meter, depends a little bit how you compare it, to about 400, 500 watts of tungsten. And yes, it has the same mounting, so all the normal reflector, the beauty dishes, the paras, all the soft boxes, all the umbrellas, beauty box, everything you use on the Broncolor flash side, you can use it as well on the Broncolor LED side. Of course, exceptions are Picolites. They require a power pack. Okay, but all the, let's say, normal light shapers like all the open reflectors, the metallic reflectors, all the boxes, paras, umbrellas, and so on, it's the same bayonet, it's the same mounting. So yes, you can use the same light characteristic with continuous light. Next one is a long one from Leo. I'm a new learning about lighting, but I don't see a light meter and how you do know how far the light from the subject is the process. Okay, good. Light meter. So when you're new in photography, especially when you're at school, they teach you about using light meters. It's maybe good to understand what is 1 f-stop difference, but in the end, I don't use light meters, to be honest. Or let's say I have my 2 most important light meters are my right eye and my left eye. So when I think it's too dark, I make it brighter. When I think it's too bright, I make it darker. That's number 1. The first decision I'm taking with my eyes and my heart, and I just change the power until it looks good. And then if I have a tricky object, like white object on a white surface, I read out RGB values. That's much more precise than any light metering because you can meter pixel by pixel. And then there, if you want to be on the safe side, you choose your important elements of the photograph to be between 15 and 240. So the digital file goes from 0 to 255. Forget the high 15 and forget the lowest 15. And they might be lost. And if you keep the important parts of your photograph between 15 and 240, you're definitely on the safe side. I'm not talking about a highlight in an earring or something like this. This can be burned, I don't care. But if you have, let's say, a white blouse or a white t-shirt and you have the entire arm is on a 250, I turn nervous, okay? So either you work with a calibrated screen and you trust your screen, or you read out RGB values. But there are many reasons, in my eyes, not to use light meter. For example, shiny surfaces, I can't measure this light. Let's say if I meter it, the softbox that's far away, it would probably give me an exposure that makes the flower correctly white and the cap would be far overexposed. So the light meter does not know about shiny surfaces, shiny reflection and matte reflection. That a light meter does not know where the light is coming from. However, if you analyze the file, you shoot it and you analyze the RGB values, you're analyzing the final photograph, okay? And that's, of course, much more precise, and you can have the precise information pixel by pixel by pixel. And that's how I work. First of all, I take creative decisions, and then I meter if what I think looks good, if this is correct. Talking about this, the aperture is basically a creative decision as well as the position of the light. The power is just a technical thing. So never ever change the power by putting the lights further away. Like the softbox, now it's very important that it's far away. And let's say if you say, okay, it's a little bit too dark and you bring it closer, you lose, because if you bring the softbox closer, it will as well hit the flower landscape. Okay, so aperture and position of the light is our creative decisions. The power is just a technical one. Right. Okay, so let me have a close look. I think we have time for one more example. If you have additional questions, please, it's pretty much like the last option now for you guys. We have been talking a lot about Picolites, but there is a life. Well, life is not that fun without Picolites, but there is one. And for example, this photograph is shot with 3 compact units, 3 Ceros lights. The main light is up here. That's a Ceros. It has a cable, so it's a Ceros S with grids through an acrylic. We discussed about acrylics before, and here you can see what I do. So this normal reflect with grids creates here gradations. That's actually the main light. The final shot looks like this. So all the gradations you see here, all the roundings, all the highlights in the vinyl LPs, all these are caused by this main light. It's rather large, so that and rather close over a short distance. So that's why I have long highlights. They show the gradation that I created. So here it's darker, here it's brighter, here it's darker, and all these gradations come from acrylics. If you would do this with a softbox, so you replace the acrylic here with a softbox, these reflections here, they would be even. They would just be white lines, but they would not show roundings. They would not show the 3-dimensionality. Then additional fill-in lights. Here, softbox, again, the small softbox, because it's a small object, 35 by 60 centimeters, responsible here for the highlight on this area, and as well here on this part of the headset. So these highlights here are created by the softbox. On the other side, these slightly harsher, slightly more aggressive highlights like here, they work as well. They work out the texture here of this ear, yeah, the material that comes directly on the ear. And as well here, the three-dimensionality, this comes from a normal reflector, which is on the left from this one. That's the fill-in from the other side. What you see very, very nicely, let's compare the soft main light here through the acrylic and the hard fill-in from the left. Let's compare these. Here we have the hard fill-in on the left, showing a lot of texture here on this part. Let me open it quickly in preview and zoom in a tiny little bit. Okay, so here, that's the hard light hitting from the normal reflector open, so a lot of texture, and then the light fades away and the diffused light takes over. So here, much less, it's the same material, but all of a sudden it fades away. So this we can again compare to portrait photography. If you would like to emphasize the texture of the skin, you work with rather hard light, which means smaller light sources, rather further away. If you, on the other side, if you would like to hide texture of skin, you take rather soft boxes or large soft boxes and you bring them closer so the light turns softer and hides, let's say, wrinkles or imperfect parts of the skin. Right, so we have one more question here. We have two more questions here. Do you create a custom ICC profile in your artistic process? No. I'm not too technical with my colors. I use, not today because I kind of set it up a little bit before. I use gray cards. When the light setup is finished, I put there a gray card. I just tell the camera, this is gray, but the fine adjustments, again, I have a very good screen calibrated. I just close the curtains, switch off the lights in my office, and I adjust the colors with my eyes. So I'm not a color technician. I'm more like, let's say, rather emotional on the way regarding colors. Much less, of course, with product photography because they have to be more correct. So if I shoot advertising for brown color, I can't say, oh, okay, a green Picolite is what we want today, and maybe tomorrow it's pink. Doesn't work like this. So of course, in product photography, I'm more correct, okay? But let's say in portrait photography, I like just to play as well with saturation a little bit. Sometimes I let's say now winter comes, it's ugly weather outside. So we start looking like white cheeses here in Switzerland. Okay, so I might work with slightly harder light and increase the saturation a little bit. However, then maybe in next summer I have a seminar in Spain where we have the beautiful skin colors, and in this situation I would rather work maybe a little softer and I would like to desaturate a little bit. But the way I work is much more on the emotional side, on the feeling side than to deal too much with ICC profiles, because anyway, I can't work with them. I don't know exactly how they work. Okay, so probably last question from Edward. Urs, can you tell us more about the previous product shot of the Bioterm cream? Light number 1 was used to illuminate the brand name on the bottle. Yes, correct. I'm not entirely sure how you did that, as it was not precision light such as a projecting attachment. Yes, important question. Let me go back to this quickly. So we are talking about this, we are talking about this reflection. This is a surface, so it's a round bottle, and it reflects, let's say, half of my studio because it's round, okay? If you try to illuminate this with a projecting attachment with something like this, you will get 10 pixels that are white and all the other ones are black. If you have a reflective area, the entire area must have a light source that's reflected in this area. So if you illuminate, try to illuminate, let's say you put a mirror here on the wall, and you shoot this mirror and you illuminate the mirror from the side with a spot. What do you get? You will only see the scratches and the fingerprints and the dust, because these are diffused reflections. So you will only see the dirt on the mirror. But the mirror itself will only reflect if you have, let's say, any light source in the correct angle. But if this light source is something very small, like a projecting attachment, you will just have a few pixels that are completely burnt, and all the rest of your mirror remains black. So that's why when you want to create a reflection in glass or in a watch or in this biotherm bottle, you need an area light that's large enough to cover the studio, to cover that part of the studio that reflects in the writing. And the trick to have the rest of the setup dark is the distance. So the distance between the light source and the surface or the object defines the contrast between directed and diffused reflections. The closer you get, the brighter everything becomes. And if you go further away, let's say everything that's matte, like the shaving cream, like the bottle itself, everything becomes darker, but the directed reflections in the shiny writing is independent on the distance. The brightness here of these letters, they are independent on the distance. And that's a very nice way and a very important way to control a softbox, because a softbox is kind of uncontrolled light. The light poof goes everywhere. But if you take it far away, it only affects the reflective areas, the mirroring areas, but it's the rest of the set is kept in the dark. Right. Good. Yeah, it's good that we could close with this, because I think it looks quite basic. These are the fancy light shapers, and that's just the softbox. But softboxes, if you really understand them, they can solve a lot of your problems. And in this situation, the distance was the key to control this softbox. Good. Okay, the window on the right side in the chat is empty, which means there are no more questions, which means I don't want to enlarge it unnecessary. And I would like to thank you very much for your patience. I think this was it for this year regarding the webinars. If I close the session, you will be redirected to a review, a couple of questions that we ask you, and please just spend 2 minutes answering these questions. It will help us to provide maybe even better webinars next year. But for the moment, that's it. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening. Bye-bye from Switzerland. Ciao.